We are thrilled to welcome back Rosa Donahue to talk to us today about bone health.
Today we'll be talking about bone health. And one of the things that most of us associate with bone are skeletons. Mainly we see them around Halloween. So Halloween skeletons are the ones that most of us are more familiar with. The real skeletons, human skeletons, look like this. This is what is inside us. And so you see there are many bones. Those numbers on the left show many things about the skeleton. When we are born, a newborn baby has between 270 and 300 bones, a lot of bones. Most of them, or a lot of them, are really cartilage, because babies are very soft. And as the baby grows, they harden up, they fuse, they become bigger bones. So that's why when we get to the adult life, we have around 206 bones. That's most adults have 206 bones. Some have a few more because they are taller or they're just born with an extra pair of ribs. But in general, most of us have 206 bones. Has 22 bones. It is our head. 14 of those bones are the facial bones, the front, and the rest 8 are in the back, the harder bones covering our brains. 54 bones, that's a lot of bones. Those are in our hands. The hands have the most bones. So that's about 27 bones on each hand. 52 bones on our feet. So yeah, that's both feet have 52 bones, and 24 bones, the ribs. We have 12 pairs of ribs, 24 bones, one bone, which is really not connected. It's in there, it's part of the skeleton, but it's not really fused or connected somehow to the rest of it's the only bone. And it's called the hyoid, Hyoid. And it's about here, not the mandible, but under, about here. It has the shape like this, like a horseshoe, and it's right there. And that's what allows us for breathing and sound speaking, swallowing. So that's why it sort of moves a little, but it's right there. And we have 2 bones on our nose. So it's not a very hard bone, but it is a bone. And 3 we have in our ears. And that's where one of them in the middle ear is the smallest of all the bones that we have in the body. Okay, so there you have it. That's what it's inside us. The bone is what supports us. You saw the whole skeleton. If we didn't have the bones inside us, we would just be crushing down. Our soft tissues and muscle would be just getting like a big balloon. So it is for support. It supports us. It also protects our organs. Like inside the rib cage, we have all the vital organs, the heart. A little bit lower, we have the liver. So a lot of our organs are protected by the bones, so that if we fall or get hurt somehow, the bones protect the organs. So that's why it's so important to maintain the health of the bones. And what are the bones made out of? They are made out of collagen, which is a protein, and minerals, but mainly calcium. So that I'm sure you've heard, get calcium. Calcium is important for bone health. That's why what makes the bones, several minerals, mainly calcium and phosphorus, and also the collagen. What's in the bones? The bones are made out of several layers. So the outside layer is a little bit softer, and it contains all the blood vessels, or some of the blood vessels. And the next layer under that is what we see in a dry bone, like the skeleton that was the human skeleton picture. It's sort of white. The bones are sort of white and look hard. That's the second layer, and that is to protect the inside, what comes after it. That's why it's a little bit harder. And then after that comes another layer, or inside the bone, it looks like a sponge. So it has, if you look at a sponge closely, it has tiny little holes. It's not a solid piece of fabric or rubber. It has little holes. So when those little holes get bigger, that's when your bones get frail and weak, and they could break. So that's what the sponge-like layer is, what's supporting the inside, giving the bone strength. Further in, the innermost part of the bone is the bone marrow, which is what contains the blood cells. And all the blood cell, or most of the blood cells, I think about 90–95% of the red blood cells are produced by the bone marrow. And it looks like almost like a jelly type compound that's all the way inside the bone. And what happens when the bones get weak and frail and they can break? So you develop one of the diseases, bone disease, which is osteoporosis. There are many diseases, bone diseases, like it can be tumors, it can be cancer, all kinds of other, but the more common or more known most is osteoporosis. Before you get osteoporosis, you get osteopenia, which is when your mineral contents, the mineral density of the bone is low, starts to get low, then you have osteopenia. So it's like osteopenia is pre-osteoporosis. When the bone loss, the mineral density of the bone, it gets higher and higher. So you lose more bone minerals, then you are at that stage of osteoporosis. And the problem with that is that as your bones get weaker, then your risk for fractures is much higher. So what are the risk factors? Who has a higher risk? So just being a woman is one of the risk factors. So, unfortunately, that's what happens. Also because we go through menopause, and that means changes in our hormones, one of them estrogen. So that's why the risk is a little bit higher for us women. Also, sedentary life, being a couch potato. If you don't move, do exercise, and I don't mean just going to the gym, doing really strenuous exercises, but just walking. You can go outdoors, you can do it at home. If you have stairs, go up and down the stairs. If you don't have stairs, if you live in a building, well, you have stairs easily. But if not, you can just inside your own home. Whether it's marching in place, you can jog in place, you can just walk around the table or just keep moving. You can also do some weightlifting, and not those heavy weightlifting that you see in gyms, but just pick up a jug of juice or milk and use that as a weight, or even just a can of soup or can of whatever you have at home, and use those as weights. So they don't have to be 5, 10, 15-pound weights. It can just be 1 pound or whatever you can, half a pound, 2 pounds, whatever you can do without, if you feel pain, then don't, that's too much. So it doesn't have to be that heavy to do weightlifting. The things to do in terms of exercise is that weight bearing, which I said, weight bearing is you can use your own body as a weight, like going up and down the stairs, and don't go up too quickly or going down, because then it's just gravity that's bringing your arms or feet down. Just do it very slowly. The same with the weights. When you're lifting some weights, you do it very quickly, then it's just gravity is just bringing it down. Just lift it slowly, hold it, and then bring it down slowly. Another risk factor is weight, body weight. If you are underweight, that is a high risk, because mostly your bones will be weaker and smaller, or mainly just weaker. Make sure you have a healthy weight. So, but what I mean by healthy weight, the number of pounds doesn't actually indicate. You can look a little bit overweight, you can look, but you are healthy. So just make sure that when you go to the doctor or your health provider, that everything is fine. Some people who are a little bit on the heavier weight are very healthy, and some people who are a little bit underweight are also very healthy, and anything in between. So being obese, then that is a problem, because then your body is carrying extra weight. So it's more stress on your bones. So that puts you at a higher risk. Cigarette smoking also, or alcohol. So some of these things you can control. You can avoid some things, or you can add some things, but other things are harder to control. Like if you have a disease that you were born with, or you develop a disease like cancer, then it's hard. You can treat it, but it's not up to you 100% to control or fix it. Another risk factor that you cannot control is your age. So as we get older, then our risk gets higher too. So that we cannot control, but we can do the things to prevent from developing osteoporosis or osteopenia. Also, ethnicity is a risk factor that you cannot control, like being white or Asian usually have a higher risk. But it doesn't mean that others who are not white or Asian will not get it. So if you're not, don't go ahead and do all the things that are bad for your bone health. And another one is also family history. If your mom or your grandma and your aunt and your sister down the road in the family line have had osteoporosis, then your risk is higher. And so you can change your family history, but then you can then do things to prevent from developing osteopenia or osteoporosis. Another risk factor is that maybe you can control it, maybe not, is medication. Some medication you really need to take. So, but others, maybe check with your doctor or healthcare provider, because there may be some other medication that does the same thing for whatever condition you have, but doesn't have that harsh effect on your bones. Well, if you have lupus or lactose intolerance, celiac disease, no, you can't change that. If you can't have certain type of foods, for instance, that are rich in calcium, maybe just look for other types of foods. If you are a vegetarian or a vegan, vegetarian is not so much. A vegan has to pay more attention, because if you're not taking any, you're limiting a lot of your foods, but it doesn't mean that you cannot get enough nutrients. You just have to work harder and really work with a dietitian or a healthcare provider or whoever's coaching you that knows about where to get all the nutrients from in a vegan diet. But that is important, because protein is very, very important for bone health. So they have done studies that show that women especially, we need more protein than the RDA, the recommended daily allowances. Some are saying that for women, we really need closer to 100 grams of protein a day, which is pretty hard to get to that amount. And here too, remember, is the good type of protein. Say, for instance, when I first read that, I said, oh, so I'll just 100 grams of protein, that's, well, eat a little more. But if you have an egg, which is the best bioavailable protein that is coming from eggs, it only has, one egg has about 6 to 7 grams. So how many eggs would you have to eat a day? If you get say a hamburger, so that's meat, So get a pretty thick, not a thin, skinny hamburger, a thick hamburger. It might have maybe 18 grams, 20 grams. So it's still not so. How many hamburgers would you have to eat? Cereals, vegetables, they may have 2, 3, 4, 5 grams. So it's not, unless you eat a lot of, in every meal, you ate a lot of meat, or even cheese has, and milk also has protein, but not that much. So you really have to work at getting the right, you can't be eating meat in every single meal, but so you can get to a higher number. Maybe I would say if you can get to about 80, 85, that would be good. So you have to, starting at breakfast, you have to start there by having something like an egg in the milk and whole grain cereals. Even the cereals, if you eat a bowl of cereals, you're not getting a lot of protein with the cereals. With the milk, it does add up, but make sure you get some protein in every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or snacks in between. Not too much of the red meats. And if you're a vegetarian, just make sure you get enough of the beans and lentils and chickpeas and tofu. They all have good protein and calcium too. Even if you're watching TV, get up every so many minutes and walk around, stretch a little bit, march in place. Remember, if you don't use it, you lose it. So we lose muscles and we lose bone health also. One thing that has been discovered with now in astronauts, when they go into space and they don't do much moving, they float around. So they're not doing any weight bearing or resistance exercises, which are the best for bone health. When they come back from space, they checked them and they had lost bone mass. So not just muscle, but bone mass. So that is, just remember, you don't want to be like the astronauts, just floating around, not really moving, putting weight on your movements. And try to do it about at least 30 minutes. Like walking is great. Just keep walking about 30 minutes, at least every other day. Better if you can do it every day. And for doing some of the weight bearing or strength building exercises, if you can do 2 to 3 times a week, that would be good. I tried to find out if there is a bone builders exercise program in New York City. They have it throughout the country, and it's a program that was started by Tufts University, and it really, really helps. And it's you can find it on YouTube. If you don't have it in New York City, you can watch one from any of the other states and just follow those are very good. And they have found, Tufts University has done the research and found out that after doing it for a year or two, they have found improvement in bone density. One thing that you can do too is ask your doctor to see if you can if you haven't had one, to have a bone density test, because that's the best way to find out if you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, or you don't have it. We have these early signs there are warning signs, but to confirm and to make sure, have a bone density test. Now, it's best if you can have one as early as possible, like in a younger age, and then, because then you can have that as a basis, as a reference for later on. Because if you have one later on, then it will show some bone loss, because that is normal. So also remember that it is normal. The aging process goes along with some bone loss. So if you have a bone density test later in life, you have nothing to compare to see if you have been losing too much, or when did you start losing the bone mass. So they usually do the test every 2 or 3 years because it takes a while. You don't just increase your bone density in a week or a month. It may take a year or two to show a significant difference, unless you're doing really strenuous, very vigorous exercises, and then you might show an increase in maybe 6 months. But for most people, it may take 2 to 3 years, which is better. Even if you cannot increase your bone density, if you can maintain it at the level that it is when you have a test, that's good. Because as I mentioned, we all keep losing one, but if we can keep it at one stage, then that's a good sign. There are some signs. So they call it osteoporosis. They call it also like heart disease. It's a silent killer, a silent disease, because you don't feel anything. You can have bone loss and you don't feel anything until you break a bone. That's really most of the time is a sign when you go for a broken bone and they find out that you have osteoporosis. Now, of course, you can break a bone if something heavy falls on your foot or your hand, and that doesn't mean you have osteoporosis, but just falling, slipping and falling, and if you break your bones, that could be a sign that you have started to develop osteoporosis or osteopenia. So what are the signs that tell us that maybe something is going on with our bones? Is you feel pain on your neck and back, and you didn't hurt yourself, you didn't sleep with a pillow in the wrong place, or you didn't drop something on your back, or there's no reason to explain why your neck keeps hurting, comes and goes, and your back. So that could be one sign. Also, you're getting shorter. So when you go to the doctor, they usually measure your height and weight. So if you're getting a little bit shorter, or if you see that you're getting a little bit shorter, that's also a sign that maybe you are losing bone mass. And of course, as before, you have to keep moving. If you've noticed that you're sitting and you're getting weaker, also if you feel that your grasp is weaker, so we try to grasp something and we don't have the strength like before to open jars and just hold on to things. That might be some loss of strength is normal as you age. But if you notice that it's really getting worse and worse, then that could be another sign. And we usually don't pay much attention to when we see that we have these signs, but we think, oh, it's nothing. I just slept wrong, or I'm tired, or I was bending too much. So just pay attention to all these little signals. Stop smoking and drinking alcohol. Smoking definitely, but alcohol also, if you can avoid it, fine. If you really still want to have a little bit, limit. Women, if you have no other reasons for avoiding besides your bone health, then limit the alcohol drinking, maybe just on the weekend, or if you are so used and can't stop every day, no more than just half a glass, say wine or whatever it is you're having, a beer, maybe every other day, because that also takes away some of the calcium from your bones. Preventing falls. And of course, that one refers to sometimes, as I said, we get older, we get a little bit weaker, but we leave things in the middle of the way. And so we trip on it. We can't see well and we don't go to the eye doctor, or we don't wear our glasses and we can't see what we think we're seeing well, but we don't see little things, and then we trip. So clear the way in wherever you are. Don't leave furniture, toys, rugs that are slippery, and then we slip and fall. Or when you're walking outdoors, too, just watch where you're walking. Don't go distracted with your phone or looking at what's the surroundings, which is nice. Well, if you want to look at the surroundings, stop and look at the surroundings, but just watch where you're walking. So that's how you can prevent falls, especially going up and down the stairs. If you can hold on to a railing or make sure you're stable enough. You can also practice balance, because that's what really prevents falls a lot. So try some of the exercises. If you can find the bone builders exercises, you will find some of them there. But also, if you have a corridor or just along a wall, try to walk right in front of that wall as if you were walking on a tightrope. So one foot in front of the other and in front, not like we normally walk, but put one foot in front, as close as you can to that foot, then put the other foot in front of the other foot and just keep walking and put your arm out so that if you lose some balance, you can hold on to, put your arm on the wall. If you have a corridor, you can put both arms like this and walk. But if you don't, at least one arm, that's for balance. Also try standing up on one foot, hold on to a chair or a wall or something, then stand up on the other foot, try one foot, then try the other. And just keep it that way for count to 10 or start counting to 5 and then go up to 12 if you can. So balance is very important for preventing falls. That's with or without osteoporosis, that's important. And the last one is eating a healthy diet. Most of us try to eat a healthy diet, and it means eating a varied diet, have not just meat and potatoes, but eat a lot of vegetables, not just lettuce and tomatoes, but all the different, try a different vegetable each week or each day if you can, especially the dark green leafy vegetables, because those are richer in calcium. But broccoli is also rich in calcium. Kale, spinach, Swiss chard, a lot of cabbage. Now, spinach, you will find that it has oxalic acid, which inhibits the absorption of calcium. And that's why they say spinach is very good, because it has a lot of calcium, but the oxalic acid prevents it from being absorbed. And I was finding out too that if you soak the spinach for a while, if you can for an hour, and change the water and just soak it, this oxalic acid will leach out. So that's also when you cook it, it will leach out some of the oxalic acid. So then it will have less. And if you have something with calcium at the same time, that's where you see some of the recipes have spinach pie or spinach that has cheese in it. Well, the cheese has the calcium, and calcium binds to the oxalic acid, and then that is excreted. So it takes instead of remaining in your body or taking away calcium from other parts of your body, it is excreted. So that's one way, you sprinkle a little Parmesan cheese, not a fat. Hard cheeses have more calcium and less fat than soft cheeses. So like Parmesan cheese or one of those other hard cheeses, Romano, Pecorino, whatever. It's hard. If it's soft, creamy, which we all like, it has more fat and it has less of the calcium. For the body to absorb calcium, it needs the vitamin D. So you need to have enough vitamin D. And the latest studies are showing that vitamin D is not just important for calcium absorption, but for so many other body functions. Vitamin D is a little bit harder to get from food. Mainly you get it from sunlight, but in the wintertime, not many of us are out there sunbathing. Also, the angle of the sun has a lot to do. Okay, in New York City or in places where there are lots of buildings and trees, and so you are partly in the shade and partly in the sun. If you're wearing in the winter, even if we go out, we're wearing jackets and gloves and hats, so only our face is exposed, so we don't really get much from the sun. So you have to try eating, like mushrooms will have some liver, egg yolk, but how much of that can you eat? So it's good to eat them. But also if you take a multiple vitamin every day, it has some vitamin D. So make sure you can be tested for that too. You can ask where you have a blood work done the next time you have a physical exam. Ask your doctor to check your vitamin D level, because that helps with not just the bone health, but as I said, many other health conditions. And also you need vitamin K, very small amounts, but that also you can get it in your multiple vitamin. Vitamin K, you can find it in, if you like sauerkraut, it has vitamin K. Some cheeses also have vitamin K. Foods that are fermented, but the easiest way is to get it like from eggs. The egg yolk will have some, and your multiple vitamin. Protein, I mentioned before, you really need enough protein because 50% of the bone is made of protein. So that's why we need, even though we think of bone as a hard, solid thing, and we think of protein as muscles, but actually the bones, 50% are made out of protein. Also, I mentioned before that the red blood cells are produced in the bone marrow, inside the bone, and it's just for the bone health, but for the rest of the body. And when other parts of the body need them, it releases that. It releases some minerals also. So minerals like calcium. If other parts of the body need calcium and you don't have enough circulating calcium in your bloodstream, then the bones will release some. What happens if you don't have enough circulating calcium in your blood from the foods that we eat, for instance, then it will take it from the bone. And each time, the more it takes it away from the bone, the weaker the bone will get. So that's why we have to continue supplying the calcium, not just one time a month, or doing all these things to prevent osteoporosis. We have to do it continuously. We have to eat properly. We have to exercise frequently and keep moving and avoid all the things that damage the bones. We also need magnesium. So magnesium is needed because magnesium activates vitamin D. And so if you want to have enough vitamin D, you should have enough magnesium, so that then the vitamin D can help the absorption of calcium from the intestines. So one of the easiest and richest foods that we can get magnesium from is pumpkin seeds. They're very rich. You find that magnesium is found in almost a lot of foods, vegetables, but especially in pumpkin seeds. So that is, if you can get pumpkin seeds, that would be a good thing to get. Chia seeds, they call it also the superstar because it's very rich in calcium, and it also has a lot of magnesium and a lot of other minerals that the body needs, including omega-3 fats, which is the next nutrient that is needed. Weight by weight, chia seeds can have more omega-3 than even salmon. However, you can't eat, a pound or even a half a cup of chia seeds, but every little bit counts. So if you can sprinkle chia seeds on your yogurt or your cereal or your ice cream or whatever, mix it in. If you're cooking hamburger, you can mix it in with cooking meatballs or meatloaf or a soup. Just sprinkle some chia seeds in there. You can see the little specks, but you won't change the flavor much. If you do put a lot of it, then you will get like almost slight fishy taste or smell. But that's if you put like 3 tablespoons or more. You can get magnesium in boiled spinach and peanuts and nuts, peanut butter, black beans. So they're common foods that we all eat, easy to get magnesium. And zinc you get mainly from meat, beef, chicken, but you also get it from flax seeds, chicken, shellfish, and shiitake mushroom, peas. That's where you can get some zinc. Omega-3 fats are very important also because they protect our bones, and it's one of the things that is found to help the aging process. And you find it in fatty fish like salmon, sardines, herring, and you can get it fresh or canned. Now it's easy to get canned sardines or canned salmon also, because fresh salmon can get very expensive too, but you can get it's fine. And try to get the ones with the bones that you can eat, because some sardines, if you read the label on the can, it says boneless, and most people prefer the boneless, or salmon, it says boneless. But get the ones that has the bones in it, and you'll be surprised. You can eat them. They've been cooked and they're so soft. You're not going to choke on them. You can even mash it with a fork or just chew them. They get very, very soft. So, and that's where you get the most of the calcium too, from the bones in those types of fish. Plus you're benefiting from the omega-3 fat. Oh, you can also get some, not a lot, but you can get some omega-3 from walnuts. So that's another source. And another thing that you can do to help your bone health is consume some herbs. A lot of herbs most herbs have some type of nutrient, but some are particularly important or useful for bone health. And they can be some you might be familiar with or might find easy to get. Lemongrass, I don't know where you could find lemongrass sometimes in the farmer's market, fresh lemongrass. Thai food uses a lot of lemongrass in their cooking, but you can plant it also, have it in a pot and grow it. You can make tea with that. And lemongrass has a lot of flavonoids, which are antioxidants. And then that helps to form bones. So you can make a tea, but usually for most of the herbs is about one rounded teaspoon, sometimes a tablespoon per cup of boiling water. And you let it steep for a few minutes, 5 minutes, then strain it, and then you have your herbal tea. So that applies to most of the herbs. Some you have to simmer them, cook them, because they're harder. Like if you're using the roots, for instance, dandelion, you can use the leaves, but mostly you buy the roots for this purpose, and those are very hard. So those you would have to simmer for about 5-10 minutes, and then strain it, and then you would have your dandelion root herbal tea. And dandelion root is very rich in calcium also. So that would be another source. You can make iced tea with that, so that during the day, when I was saying try to get your calcium throughout the day, you can have the iced tea, or you can have it along the meal. Because one thing that you have to remember also, that the body cannot absorb well more than 500 to 600 grams of calcium at a time. So many people say the recommendation sometimes for women it varies, but it can be from 800, 900. If you have osteoporosis, 1,000, even 1,200. But if you take it all at one time, you're wasting it. Try to take some at least twice, divided in 2, or better if you can divide it in 3 parts. And the same way with the foods. So don't eat all your calcium-rich foods in one meal. Just you can divide it throughout the day. Another herb horsetail. And this horsetail has nothing to do with the horse or its tail. It's just the name because it looks like it's long, like long hair, thick hair. But this one contains, besides the calcium, it contains silicon or silica, which is very important to form the bones. That's what makes the bones strong, the silicon. And you can make a tea or make a decoction, which is what I was talking about. Simmer it in some water for 5-10 minutes and then strain it. So the horsetail will not come, sometimes it's cut up so it's shorter pieces, but if it's too long, just cut it up into smaller strands or hairs to make the decoction. And as far as the dandelion, I said it's really rich in calcium and also has silicon. But don't pick up the dandelion from along the roads because it usually grows along highways sometimes. If you go out of the city, you'll find that dandelion. It has those little yellow flowers that you see, like weeds, those dandelions, because if they are along the road, they are absorbing all the pollution from the traffic, from the cars, and whatever runoff that comes after rains washes the roads and just goes into the ground. So you don't want that dandelion. You can buy fresh dandelion in the farmer's market, or some supermarkets sell it, but also as the dried roots are sold, some herbal stores or some supermarkets might even sell the roots also, dried roots. One that's very common is chamomile. Chamomile is it's known for its calming effects. We take chamomile to calm you down, calm your nerves, but it also has a lot of antioxidants and has been shown to protect the bones. It protects the gradual loss of bones. So that's why it's important if you take chamomile frequently, a cup of tea, that will help with it to prevent the gradual loss of bones. Nettles is another herb that's also very good, rich in calcium, and it's very easy to absorb. Make tea or put it into soups. Nettles, if you get the fresh nettles, it has like little needles, stinging nettles, they call it. But once you cook it, those little stinging things go away. So they're not stinging anymore. You can make a tea or put it into your soups or stews or cooking. Red clover, again, also don't pick it from the roads. You can buy that, the flowers. And it has a little sweet taste. It's just nice. But that you can make a tea also. And they also help to prevent osteoporosis. Bones keep changing. They are living cells. They keep changing. It's constantly making new cells to form bones. And it's also removing all the old dead cells, bone cells. So the building of bones goes on continuously, and it's called modeling, like the model. So the modeling goes on continuously throughout life. And the taking away of the old bone, removing them, also continues happening, and that's called remodeling. The problem is that up to a certain age, usually up to the age of 30, accumulated the most strength for our bones. After that, then the process, the remodeling, which is removing, is faster. And as we age, it's even faster after menopause. So the modeling and remodeling happens continuously throughout life, but the remodeling, the losing of the bone, happens faster after menopause, maybe. So that's why we have to really work at it.